Good morning, fans from around the world. My name is Afolabi, and I'm here with Mustafa Jinodi to discuss contemporary African issues. And the program is African Agenda. Welcome, Mustafa.
Welcome. How is everything, Afolabi? How's everything in Lagos?
Yeah, Lagos is fine. It's just that it has been raining heavily. It started raining around 3 a.m. and it's still a bit wet, but it's
Okay.
better away from the
Thank you.
hot,
Yeah.
humid weather.
Well, weather.
How is it
Yeah.
in New
So,
York?
oh, it's okay. It's right now. It's 4 in the morning. So, but things are getting hot here with the weather, and with we can take a little divergence. Trump is doing very well, and so this should be a message. I'm not going to say anything controversial today, but this should be a message to the Democratic Party and to Biden that you have to perform well and you have to do things that your citizens want you to do if you don't want to get kicked out. And nobody could imagine. Remember a couple of months ago when we did Flashpoint, and I was
Yeah.
saying if remember I kept saying that if Biden continues like this, and right now on the polls, Biden is losing miserably, and if he doesn't make some changes very quickly, he's going to be kicked out. So I'm not saying anything controversial this time, but I'm just saying he needs to take this seriously. And this goes in line with the South African elections, which are coming up soon.
Yes,
Well,
I
not
agree
soon, they're
with you.
coming up.
I
Yeah,
agree with
yeah,
you. This
yeah.
time around is rather funny because all the global situations are against Biden. It's going to be difficult.
It's
It's going to
difficult.
be a long shot for him
Yeah.
to pull it out
Hmm.
now because all the global issues are against his policies.
They're against him. So he needs to, and this is what democracy, remember the other day on our show, we said democracy is the goodwill of the people. It's not just being voted in. So
The
what
power of the
Biden
people.
is doing, hmm? And
It's the
for the people,
power
yeah,
of the
what
people.
Biden is doing is right now, he's not following public opinion. The public has sent a very strong message in which they want to see an end between the conflict between Israel and Palestine and Hamas. Because there's three things involved. Israel is fighting Hamas, but at the same time, they're the casualties for children is too much. And the American people have spoken and said this must end. And America is the most powerful country in the world, and they have the power to stop it. And Biden is not stopping it, or he's not solving the problem. And whether he's right or wrong or not, you're going to be blamed. Just like if you're the CEO of a company, even if it's not your fault, what's going on below you, you will be the one who's fired.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Lerato is in now.
Oh, he's in. Okay, yeah. So we're
Yeah.
going to talk more about that because this is
Yes, I
the
just wanted to
African.
say something, Mustafa. It
Yeah,
puts
continue.
Biden
Yeah,
in a very tight situation because even Israel is beginning to see Biden as an enemy. They don't see as much
yeah. So
support coming from. So he's in a tight
yeah,
situation. He's
yeah,
enemy to his people in the America, and also Israel is
yeah,
not seeing him as a supporter.
yeah.
So
And here's what
it's
I think.
difficult
So
situation. Okay.
very quickly, I think because they sense that Biden is weak. Let's tell the truth. Do you think that if Trump was around, okay, and Trump said, "Okay, OTAN is finished. We have to stop this," do you think that Israel, the president, would disrespect Trump?
No, I don't
No,
think
because
so.
Trump has that charismatic personality because he's a boss. Trump was a businessman. So what I think is that we all know Trump is pro-Israel, but Trump is a political animal, actually. So what
Yeah,
Trump will
sure.
say is that
Absolutely.
Trump will call Israel and say, okay, you guys just go on TV and say you won. And let's end this now because I'm not going to allow Israel to destroy my business and my presidency. But Biden is passive, very passive, and
Very
Israel does
passive,
not.
yes.
They don't respect him. So anyway, we're going to move on. Like this is African agenda, but things that happen all over the world. Palestine is important wherever we're from at, and we all say that when I say Africa is for Palestine, it doesn't mean I'm against Israel. When I say Africa is for Palestine, what it means is that I believe that there needs to be a two-state solution or a one-state solution, and the apartheid has to end. I'm not
Sure.
blaming any side for the
Sure.
apartheid, but there is an apartheid, whether it's because of economic forces or because of political manipulation, that apartheid needs to end. So
And
is
I believe if that happens, then the Palestinian people can actually distance themselves from Hamas because they don't believe that the Hamas is part of them because Hamas has a different agenda. Hamas wants to control the whole of Gaza. They
yeah,
want,
yeah, yeah. But I would say that I think it's more nuanced. I think that groups like Hamas exist because there has been apartheid and they're frustrated. So we're
yes,
with
it's like a
Larato.
splinter group.
Yeah, yeah. So Larato's here. Are you here, Larato? Because I want to make a point about the Hamas thing. Yeah,
Yes, welcome Lerato to our show this morning.
yeah, yeah.
Lerato, are you there? Lerato?
Do you
Oh,
see him there?
I can see his face, but he's not talking. Maybe his network is not so good. Maybe you send him
Yeah,
a text to maybe hop out and jump in again.
Yeah, send him a text to hop
Yeah.
out and jump in and ask him if he's muted. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't have Lerato's number
Mhm.
though. I'll send him a chat anyway. Hello,
No, yeah,
Lerato.
chat. Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
Lerato.
How you doing,
um,
Loretta? Yeah. Yeah. Did you hear him for a second?
Raymond,
Yeah, I think we heard him
yeah,
for a second.
yeah,
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
trying to connect. He's just breaking.
greetings.
Okay, so
Okay, okay, okay. It's
when he breaks
talking. It's talking, Mustafa.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that you guys perfectly.
yeah, okay, so here, so Lorato,
Let
very
me
quickly,
reconnect. Let
I
me
want to say
reconnect.
a story, Lorato. So I'm against terrorism, okay? So that means that I have to say that I was against. You remember the guy Nat Turner that killed white people when blacks were slaves? He killed children. You know Nat Turner.
Yeah,
So I'm not. So what I'm saying is that on paper, I'll say that Nat Turner. There's never a justification for killing children, but what he did was based on the conditions of slavery, which led to a violent revolt. And if that violent revolt, the reason those young children, the white children, died was because their fathers and mothers were holding blacks as slaves. So the message I'm trying to make is that terrorism is a symptom of imperialism. It's a strike back against it because we feel powerless. What do you think? Yeah, yeah.
yeah. No. That is definitely true. I think what you're saying resonates with what I think the entire media machine has been ramping on about with regards to Israel-Hamas
Yeah.
conflict, because they've sort of been pinning um, the start of this thing to be October 7th,
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
and
no.
that's been the narrative,
Yeah.
and of course from the Palestinian side the question has been, but what has been happening
Yes,
uh,
yes, yes.
before October 7th? What's been happening since the institution of the state of
So
Israel?
can I say something? Lorato,
Yeah,
there have been several uprisings that Palestine has done, and I think the last one was 6 years ago, and Hamas actually won. Israel doesn't want to say
yeah,
it. They did a few missiles. So what we're saying is that they've been encroaching on the land in Palestine, and before October 7th, because Israel is having problems, more and more settlers were going into Palestine and killing people and taking their homes. That happened a year before October 7th, and it continued. And Palestine kept on saying, if something is not done about this, we're going to strike back. You see what I'm saying? Because
yeah.
Israeli settlers, so what they were doing was they were going into Palestine and they were taking land because they don't have enough land. So in other words, Israel is having an economic situation. A lot of them are coming to the US because they don't have enough land and things are tough. So what they're doing is they're taking more land. And this is just my opinion, but I think it's based on some facts. It looks like Israel will not rest until it controls the whole land. This is what happened in the US. The Americans came and they took a small part of the US, but they kept on expanding until there were no more Native Americans. And I think that if we're not careful, that's what's going to happen historically. 300 years from now,
Yeah, I
There
mean,
will be no Palestinians. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
I
Yeah.
would think that is why the slogan "from the river to the
To
sea"
the
is
sea.
so
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, everybody needs to realize from the
so
river to the sea,
provocative.
Palestine will be free. That doesn't mean that they'll kill Israelis. What it means is that whether it's a one state nation or a two-state nation, from the river to the sea, Palestinians will be free. And that's consistent with Israelis being free also. It doesn't mean when you say I'm going to be free, it doesn't mean I'm going to destroy your freedom. It means I'm going to fight for my freedom. Continue. Yeah.
Yeah, but the oppressor always flips it in that way,
Yeah.
Black Lives
But
Matter
what
is
we
the
have to
same
do,
thing.
and that's why our show exists. We're not using violence. What we're doing is we're fighting back with reason and words, because
Yeah,
everybody knows, even a 5-year-old knows that when you say from the river to the sea, I will be free, it does not entail genocide or anti-Semitism. There's nothing from that which means
sure.
anti-Semitism at all. And so this is why we
Yeah,
have to educate, and we're going to pivot to South Africa now. This is why you were saying that in South Africa, the common man or the man at the grassroots needs to know and be educated about BRICS. Because if they're not, people at the top will say, oh, BRICS, China is evil. Same thing, river to the sea. The powers that be tell the people on the ground who are not well educated, oh, that means genocide. So we're going to pivot. We're going to talk about the Palestinian thing later on in the week. So let's go back to South Africa. What you were saying was that there needs to be a ground movement in which people are educated on the issues so they can vote intelligibly. Can you continue with that, Lorato? Thank you. Thank you very much for joining our team. You've been a very valuable addition.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the other things that we were touching on was this idea of we were speaking about tribal leadership and things like that, you know.
Yeah. And land,
also mobilization within the rural spaces and sort of drawing from cultural knowledge, you know, and actually what I remembered before we got cut off the last time was that there's the theories that we found, and actually it's not so much theory, it's also practical from Cabral. Cabral, in Return to the Source, speaks about this idea that, you know, this idea of returning to the source is actually something that urbanites feel. You know, the urban African feels it a lot more than a person who's living within
in the rural areas. Yeah. We have the same problem here in the U.S. You live in New York and these big cities, which are not agriculture, they're just marketing. Same thing with Joburg, it's just marketing. You know, and a lot of people
exactly. Yeah. So now when you actually engage with people who are living within those spaces, you find that they are well informed in their own way, and they're knowledgeable in their own way. And they are in fact the source that we are trying to return to.
And very quickly, sorry to interrupt you. In the U.S., sorry to interrupt you, but in the U.S., the places where Trump is doing well because people are going against the urban now. I'm not in favor of Trump, but it's a reaction against the urban elite. They call that part of the country the heartland. It's where the agriculture is. The word is heartland. And that goes back to what you're saying, the source. Agriculture is the sustaining force of all human beings. You know, and these are the areas where values come. Then later on, you can move to big cities. Big cities are important. They're very important, but they need to be integrated with the heartland or with the rural areas. Continue with that, Warif. I mean, I called you Warif.
So
Lorato and Warif sound the same. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I think the ground up effect needs to be thought up from that perspective as well. In that we in terms of political education, the urban dwellers have a lot to learn from.
And see, they think that the rural people need to learn. They think the rural people need to learn, but it's the urban. And this is the same thing that happened. I always say one of the first empires was Egypt or Kemet. Egypt became detached from the interior part of Africa and became imperial, and they thought they were sophisticated. It's the same dynamic. I don't know if you agree with me on that analysis, but let's see what you have to say.
I think it's similar, you know. If we look at the march of most civilizations, once the class aspect comes into play, then you lose out on your power base, which people on the ground, because those voices become muted and their aspirations become left behind and
So we're gonna continue what you said, but I want to add one more point, and I think Dr. James Early said this. He said that the highest form of African technology was they call them pygmies, the guy in Congo rainforest, and that the things that they know go way beyond what the Egyptians knew, but are the roots of what the Egyptians knew, geometry and all those things. But it starts with dreams and with shamanism and everything. So this is the point you're making, that with the people who live in the culture in the rural areas or the heartland, we tend to call them uneducated. That just means they didn't go to super universities, but there's knowledge that they have that comes with plants, with dreams, and all those things. And those are the basis for technology, even sending people to the moon. Sorry, let me let you continue with that and with relation to the elections in South Africa.
So I think people are not institutionalized, right? But they're very well educated, and there's a very big difference. So when we speak about education, we speak about it in those terms. Beyond institutionalized education, you know.
I think institutionalized education is good because every nation also needs to trade. So I think that the institutionalized category, its place is meant for trading and economics and dealing with other countries. But we have to realize that that's only 1/4 of the whole knowledge of a country. And I think that at least 75% of the knowledge of a country comes from your hometowns and the rural areas. What do you think?
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying I'm speaking of the educational aspect of what we're saying.
It's important, but we put too much power on it. Yeah, continue. Sorry about that.
I'm speaking about it more broadly. So it becomes important for people to know how these specific issues affect them. So, for example, when you read, because what I did over the past week is I went through a lot of the manifestos, you know, to try and get a sense, because I haven't.
Say quickly, man, you're making me jealous because I used to read like you do. That's all you do is read. Man, I need more time.
No. I don't read as much as you think I do, but I'm trying. I'm really hustling, you know.
Yeah, good job. Yeah.
But yeah, so I went through them. I didn't read like in detail.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You did selective reading. Yeah.
I selectively read through them, but you could see that there were specific points that came out, you know. For example, everyone wants to address the energy crisis. Everyone wants to address the water crisis. Everyone wants to address job creation. I don't know, you know, I'm also kind of like oblivious to how exactly they think they're going to just create
because
jobs, you
those
know?
things are symptoms.
I mean,
you can simplify it. They're symptoms of a bigger problem, but continue.
They seem to lay out plans of industrial this and industrial that. But when we go back to the roots of how this economy is set up to begin with, you know.
Capitalism, liberal, and this is the sad thing. Liberalism, which means freedom. Neoliberalism is actually the opposite of freedom. It's a supremacist, imperialistic facade. Continue.
So there's the fact that the economy is not sitting on a good foundation to begin with. Which I think, interestingly, the EFF, as I was telling you, has like the most concise and the most comprehensive.
It's just not complex enough, but it's precise. Yeah. It doesn't take into account.
I don't think it even needs to be, I don't think it needs to be complex, because it needs to speak to a vast majority of people. Actually, it reminds me of what we used to see when we were growing up, when the ANC was coming up. They used to have RDP documents.
And those are I lived in an RDP house for 6 months when I was in Davidson. Yeah, but continue.
But there used to be documents in the early 90s that in Mandela's early years as president that used to lay out the plan. Of course, I was like too young to understand a lot of what was being said, but I remember seeing the documents with graphics and drawings and how they were sort of laying out a plan of what this reconstructive development plan was. You know, and I think this EFF manifesto document is a little bit reminiscent of that.
And you mentioned something,
and they're very specific in terms of what laws they want to enact and what, you know. So I was very sort of like I have to highlight that it's noteworthy to see how much work that they've put into
Yeah,
that.
So I lived in South Africa in 2008, and I saw that, people used to joke that they had an RDP house. It's not as luxurious as other houses, but there was some work being done, but you could already see it beginning to decline, even by 2007, whatever that agenda for RDP.
Mm-hmm.
If they had continued with it, you would see a reduction in crime, drug use, everything. And it would have extended.
But do you guys pay rent in those kind of houses, or the rent is subsidized or something?
I think it's mostly subsidized, or even the government will give it to you for free. I don't know.
Oh, that's
Lorenzo
good.
can answer that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There is you do pay for electricity and for water, but there is also a municipal subsidy.
Okay,
There's a
very quickly
municipal subsidy. Okay.
before you continue, would you call that a form of reparations, that type of thing? Continue. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
is it just socialism?
Not entirely.
Okay.
I think they're just providing a service. It's just service
It's a service,
provision.
but it's important.
And of
And I
course,
think
you're mitigating.
Sometimes
and
those
actually
kind of
every
services
country
can be coercive.
The effect of poverty, right?
Yeah.
But reparations is another thing that we haven't.
Before you continue, so Lorato, before you continue on reparations, Afolabi, you said that you think that
Yes, I feel those
services
kind of
are. You said
gestures.
they're coercive. Come on, man. What is coercive about it? To me, that's what a government should do. It's supposed to use the resources for the well-being of people. Why would you think it's coercive?
I said that because I feel ANC might use it as a rhetoric to get people on their side. That's
Okay,
why I
so here's the
said.
thing then. Okay, so you're right about that, but in theory, it's correct. So
Oh,
it just
sure,
needs to be,
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
But it shouldn't be used as a carrot to then get dangled in front of people to
Yeah,
get
but
vote
ANC
of
doesn't even
support.
do that anymore. ANC does not
Yeah.
even they don't even promise to do those things. ANC is becoming more and more free market capitalistic value. Thank you for that point, though, Afolabi.
No, but that is actually interesting to me what they're doing in terms of how they are pushing a message.
Are they still talking about services?
Basic income grants, elders, people with disabilities and things like that. And recently, I think about a week ago or so, Ramaphosa said if people don't vote for the ANC, they can expect not to receive a grant anymore.
Well, you know what that means? That's blackmail. That's actually now that's what he's basically saying is if you don't vote for us, then you're not going to get. And he's not saying because the other groups won't do it. That's a threat. He's saying
what
that.
I said, Mustafa.
Yeah. So that's right. Yeah.
I'm saying that Afolabi is right in what he's saying that they.
Oh yeah, he's right. So I stand corrected. Okay, continue.
Yeah. To coerce people to voting for them.
Yeah.
They're also saying it. I mean, they used to say it about the houses as well, that we've built you houses, we've given you jobs. If you don't vote for us, these things won't come anymore.
Yeah.
But there is also some kind of proof that they bring to the table with when they look at how the DA, when the DA took over the Gauteng municipalities in Tshwane and in Joburg, they stopped SAPS providing the basic free water and basic free electricity.
Okay.
Right? So those things were taken off the table because they were saying.
So here's the thing. This is why these things need to be enshrined in the Constitution. I don't know. Is PDP? I mean, is RDP and all that? Is that constitutional or is it legislative?
I mean,
if it's constitutional, then DA has no right to take it away. If it's constitutional, yeah.
So that within the Constitution, what you have is people having a right to housing, a right to water, a right to. So people have all these constitutionally with these things, but the rights do not necessarily negate the fact that people have to then pay for these services.
Yeah, but that means that the Constitution is too vague. It's too vague.
Yeah. I mean, So, in spite of the fact that we've been said to have one of the best constitutions in the world and yada 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 yada, we do need a large constitutional reform.
That's what I'm trying to push for. Yeah.
That will address certain things in a way that I think the first government was not able to push.
Yeah.
You know,
but I think
what I said in the last conversation was that I think Mandela, with his influence, could have pushed for more.
Yes.
And
So
they
Mustafa,
didn't push.
Salim is around,
but they
and we
didn't
have
push
just
for
under 5
Oh,
minutes.
Salim is around. Okay, yeah. So Salim is around. We'll talk to him once I'm. And I want to say this is a great show. And Falabi, you were right. I was wrong. But I like what you did because it now led to the conclusion that we need constitutional reform so that people can't use this coercion.
Absolutely.
They can't use that coercion. It needs to be fixed into the Constitution so you can't coerce people. Continue.
Lerato.
Man, my brain has gone crazy, man.
Yeah.
Lerato. Yeah.
So what we are speaking about, like when we think about constitutional reform and all those kinds of things, is that the first government thought that they were instituting into place a government that will evolve with time. You know, the more we have time to negotiate for things, then we will be able to negotiate. So this is why
the time. Now is the time. South Africa needs to start evolving its constitution.
Yeah,
They shouldn't be like
yeah,
America,
yeah.
whose constitution is 500 years old and they've only an amendment. Continue. Yeah. I'm probably wrong about that. Somebody would somebody on our comments would tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah. So those amendments need to start happening.
Nigeria needs a new constitution also, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah. So and one of the main things that I know we've been speaking about or thinking about changing is the land reform policy as it comes up in the Constitution, which speaks to the idea of reparations, because reparation, and this is where I think this idea of land belonging to all those who live in it becomes a little bit murky, because the land that is occupied by certain economic forces belongs to certain people before those economic forces came to being.
So here's where you're beginning to get into the land of
moved.
socialism. You're beginning to see that whether socialism is a European or African concept, it needs to be enshrined, and that will destroy the class dichotomy and take away power from corporations. But continue. Yes. Is he? Yeah, continue. Sorry for pausing in, guys. I'm still trying to learn how to moderate.
So I think we would need to have like a new conversation altogether with regards to reparations. You know.
So thank you. I don't know how much time we have left, but I'll let you finish off.
We have just under 3 minutes.
So we're gonna have to send a new link so that we can do it again.
No problem.
So we'll send a link. So, but let this guy finish. Say as much as you can in a minute or two, Lerato. Then when we come back, we'll go to Salim. Yeah.
Then all right, for sure. So yeah, but I think those are, I mean, some of the issues that are not being, the idea of reparations. I think EFF is speaking a lot about constitutional reform. The DA is speaking a lot about private government. You know, like privatization. Basically, that's what it sounds like to me.
It almost sounds like I'm hearing rumors that
the scariest.
Talking about they want to break off from the rest of South Africa, but continue. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the ANC is basically saying that they're going to try and do better than what they've been doing.
Well, hopefully they will, because I'm not against the ANC, but I believe in coalitions. AFC, EFF, and Zuma's party need to coalesce. And even though they have differences, they need to find common ground. So let's get a new link. So Salim, we're going to send a new link. Lerato, we're going to send a new link. And we'll be back up in about 5 minutes. Okay. Thank you.
Cool.
Okay. So
welcome, Salim. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So then we were talking about RDP housing and stuff, and ANC is using that as a carrot for people and saying that if we lose, you'll lose all of that. And they may even have a point because they're assuming that DA will be there, but they haven't realized that MK is there. Well, I don't know if MK is still there because Zuma has been eliminated supposedly. But what I'm trying to say is
by the
either way,
courts. The courts have
yeah,
disqualified him. He's
yeah.
not
But
eligible anymore.
EFF is there. So very quickly, Salim, even though Zuma can't stand in parliament, can MK still run for office, the party? Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I think they can actually, because I don't think he was actually a main candidate. In other words, he wasn't
Yeah,
a main candidate.
no,
He,
he's the spirit of the party. That's all. He's the spirit. Yeah.
very, very true, very true. So I don't really think that him not being there is he's going to be the influence. That's one thing I'll say. He's
Yeah, he'll
going
be
to be
behind he'll be behind the thing. And I will say to his credit, he has started a populist movement, whether I agree with him, in which he caters to people in KZN and gives them a feeling of their tribe and their pride. And also, I don't think he has a negative. He's not saying, "Oh, the other tribes are bad." You get my point?
no.
But he's saying that I stand for my homeland, which is KZN. And we have to
Very
remember that South Africa, to me, is not a valid country. This is why I say so. The settlers came and they said, "Oh, this is one country." That's not valid. Afolabi, that's like Nigeria, where they tell the Hausa and the Yoruba and everybody, "This is your country." So what I'm trying to say is, I'm not saying I'm against South Africa or I'm against Nigeria, but we have to remember that you have to look at your homeland first. For example, I am from Lagos. I'm Yoruba, but I'm from Lagos. So the first thing I care about is Lagos, because that's where my dad lives, that's where my family lives, that's where my friends like Afolabi live. Quickly, what do you think about that idea, Afolabi? Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you. Basically, in Nigeria, we talk about roots is very important because it's where you come from, basically, and it's important in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And especially when, if you look at the last elections in Nigeria, there was so much tribal and ethnic rhetoric, that it almost threw the country into flames. At a point in time, the country was at the brink. It was like Igbos versus Yorubas. And
It
if
could
you
have been another
discover
civil war. Yeah.
Yes, and if you look at Lagos, Lagos is very cosmopolitan. You have so many Igbo people. They're like they're very, very hardworking. They're involved in so many things. They've literally developed Lagos. But they're not Yorubas, but they populate Lagos the most. So
That's why I said I'm from Lagos, which
yes,
means I don't care whether you're Igbo or whatever. Lagos is my town. But also, even though I want to fight against the British for starting Nigeria, also after I'm from Lagos, then I'll say I'm Yoruba. Then I'll say I'm
I'm
Nigerian.
Nigerian, exactly.
But when I say Yoruba, it's because it's my family. That's where I grew up. But
So
none of those things means that I hate the other groups. It just means that
no,
I,
no, no,
I
no, no,
have to
no,
look
no.
out for my interests. Just like, for example, Afolabi, you're a Nigerian, but your
Yes.
first responsibility is your family and your
Oh,
house.
sure, absolutely.
So the same thing is Lagos is my responsibility because that's where I come from. But at a second level, Yoruba, because Yoruba is the culture I was brought up in. But it doesn't matter because Yoruba culture is actually inclusive. It means the whole
Yes,
world is welcome.
yes,
The whole
yes.
world is welcome.
Yes, and then you're doing all of this without necessarily trample on people's foot or
Yeah, you don't
legs.
trample on people. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
so
but you
you're
just make sure that
respecting their
we
own
want to,
uniqueness.
and I think what we're arguing, we'll go back to Salim, is that the federal government in the US, in Nigeria and South Africa is too strong. And we need decentralization where
Right.
local regions have more power and then they can get service production and service delivery. So now we can go to you, Salim. What are your thoughts on everything in relation to MK and the South African elections and everything? Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, this year the elections is going to be. I feel it's going to be tough. Number one,
Yeah.
because people are still asking themselves questions that do we still vote for the ANC or don't we vote for the ANC? Who is the best candidate to actually run this country? And from my perspective, I would say that as from the beginning, EFF or MK. The others are just pawns.
Yeah.
I would just say Ponzi schemes. In other words, you understand.
Yeah. Ponzi scheme. Yeah.
I like
And
that.
very quickly, Salim, very quickly, ANC is saying we're
Ponzi
sorry and
scheme.
we'll do. ANC is saying we're sorry and we'll do better, but we have to learn. They keep saying that, and they keep doing the same thing. So now I think they've lost trust. We can't trust them anymore. Continue. Yeah. Yeah.
As you guys had the conversation on the RDP houses,
Yeah.
I would say that now some people are actually being sold RDP houses. That's
That's
the
ridiculous.
reality.
It goes against
That's
the
the reality.
concept. Yeah.
It goes against the concept, but then I think let's just say it's the under carpet. Like under carpet, you have people who deal with housing in local municipalities
Yeah,
where
because that means because the government isn't delivering, you now have to compete and you have to pay. They've turned it into capitalism because capitalism is
exactly.
when the government is not producing it. So now the agents can say, "Well, I will sell it to you at a lesser value or whatever," and that shows you that it shows that there's a breakdown in delivery of service, and the reason of that is corruption, and also because South Africa is being sold to corporate people. Same thing with the Lone Min thing where they shot those guys in Marikana.
Yeah.
There's too much foreign influence in South Africa, and it's putting too much pressure. So the government doesn't have enough money to deliver services, which is why we say South Africa needs its own currency and needs to control its resources. Continue. Yeah.
As Louis Farrakhan once said, South Africa is the biggest country. In other words, that's what
Is a
he
what?
used. Is the biggest country.
A
We
beggar
beg.
country, yeah. Because when you're a beggar,
So
and when you're a beggar, you give up your rights and say, "Please, just help me. I'll even give you money, whatever." And you go against your principles. And,
exactly.
and we don't blame beggars because when you're a beggar, you're desperate. I've been a beggar in my life before because I didn't have power. But what we're trying to do is to push our countries where we no longer have to be beggars. Continue. Yeah. Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Even with the case of the 500 billion that was lost in, I think in 2020, they say they lost around about 500 billion. The question is, how do you lose so much money?
How do you lose that much? It's like my dad sending me to go pay my brother's school fees. He gives me 20,000. Oh, Dad, I lost it on the way to school.
Come,
Go ahead, Salim. Go ahead.
it happened during COVID-19. The question was, how did you guys lose that money? And it's money that was borrowed. That's what he said. So in other words, there was a lot of
It
payments
belongs
in
to
20.
IMF. Yeah, or or they borrowed it from their own country. Yeah, that's
Because
rubbish.
a specific minister from Sweden actually said something that the money that was actually said to be given to South Africa, that 500 billion, never even got to South Africa.
Yeah, well, that's what happens. It means that it got to Western people who they got their pay. Very similar. The U.S. was sending weapons to Ukraine, right? Those weapons never got there. They went back into the U.S. politicians' pockets. And then, so for example, let's say there's $5 billion for weapons for Ukraine. By the time you
Yes.
give the people who make the weapons, who are Americans, they'll be left maybe 1 billion. Then the people who gave the contract get 2 billion. Then Ukraine will get $500. I'm exaggerating, but what I'm trying to say is that by the time everybody's palms are greased, there's nothing left for what was supposed to be the main thing, which is RDP. Same thing. RDP money has been dispersed, but it hasn't reached its destination because many people have put it in their pockets. Continue. Yeah.
Very true, very true. And on the on the land reform case, I think because from where I'm sitting now, I can see that there's like farms around us, right?
Yeah.
Owned by mostly poor, poor farmers and all of that.
Yeah, and for people who don't know what Boer is the Afrikaans who are white in complexion. That's all I have to say. Continue. Yeah.
Very true, very true.
Yeah.
So for them to actually keep making RTPs, they need space. They don't have space.
Oh, yeah, because that farmland is owned by them.
Exactly.
That's
So
a form of apartheid, like in Israel, where there's not enough space for the people who are in Palestine. Continue. Yeah.
we cramped up in one place. So it means they have to
Yeah.
look for space within the community and be like, okay, we're gonna
And
build
that leads
here.
to violence, where even Black people will start killing themselves for space.
Very
Continue.
true. And a house, the RTP house goes for 15,000 rands. In other words, that's its value, market value. It's 15,000 rands. But
Yeah.
they'll sell it to you, if it's illegal, they'll sell it to you for around about 25 to 30,000 rands.
So they're increasing the
So,
value, yeah. And that means
so
it means there's a lack of supply, and the lack of supply is from the government. Continue.
very
Yeah.
true. The local government per se, because sometimes I wouldn't want to go into the national government that much. We come back to local government. So now when we think about it and say that, you know what, I wanna vote for a party, who has hands and who's a part of the ANC, who's doing the very same bad deed of selling their houses, um, tenders that are actually given to specific people for the roads, infrastructure per se, are being squandered by
Yeah.
so by so many individuals,
And also
and
they're
some
There's corruption at a local level. Continue.
Very,
Yeah.
very true. So we look at we start locally before we go into the national government or the provincial government. We start locally first because they are the very what's it called? I think the very image of the national government, where the provincial government is like, okay,
Man,
we're
you're
gonna keep.
brilliant. I feel like, but do you hear what this guy is saying? Very brilliant. Continue. So I want to remind you, because I cut in front of you, what happens at the local level is a reflection of what happens at the global level, bottom to top. Continue. Yeah.
So when maybe the provincial government says we need to fix, maybe let's say the freeway, for instance, they have candidates that are going to be that get the tenders. So they will be like, they'll give you 100 million for this specific
And hold
tender.
on, I feel like tenders means contract, basically. Well,
yeah, sure, absolutely.
That's the word they use for it in South Africa. Continue. Yeah.
Yeah, we even have a name for most of them. We call them tenderpreneurs, you know, because they use it.
When I lived in South Africa, they call it BE, Black Empowerment.
Yeah, that's you need a BE license to actually have these contracts, in other words.
And you know what's funny? People from China in South Africa they get BE contracts. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard. China is strong. Continue. Sorry about that. Continue. Yeah.
So they give them these 100 millions. I can tell you, the value of the street could be around about 25 million, because within a space of 4 to 5 months, you start realizing that no, man, these people just patched the road. They didn't actually do anything. You understand?
This is a story all over the world, even in America, Nigeria. It's just corruption. Corruption is very bad. Continue.
Got your experience yesterday, Mustafa. It's the same similar thing. Those Ukrainian guys that change your tires.
Oh yeah, and then they take money. It's the same thing, man. Yeah, it's the same thing. We'll talk about that on another day, though. But so thank you. But thank you about that, Afolabi. And also, I had tire management problems like Verstappen. Continue. But also, right now you're doing very well. Salim, sorry, I've had wine, so sometimes I forget. Salim, continue. But thank you. Afolabi, this is some brilliant stuff, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Brilliant.
Continue. Yeah, continue. So we're going to continue for 2 or 3 minutes, and then we might talk briefly about Kenya, or we'll talk about it later. So Salim, finish up for us in 3 or 5 minutes.
Okay. So I think I will just cut it a bit short and just say that if any South African wants to vote, you have to make the right decision. You have to choose the right candidates.
Yeah.
That's willing to actually push the country to the future. Because at the moment we're still living in the past. I wouldn't lie and say that there are kids out here, or the youth out here, that actually still want to talk about apartheid. Yes, it happened. Could we talk about something that's going to be conducive? We move forward. Yeah. We try figuring out, how do we move forward? How do we get the employment rate higher? The unemployment rate must be less. Find a solution to educational, because just to add on the educational sector, basically when I was in school, we got to learn about Sundiata Keita, Mansa Musa, Adolf Hitler, and all these what's it called, historians,
iconic figures. Yeah.
And that I was in a private school, World School Downwards. So then when I took a textbook from a public school student, the difference was, there are some things they do not learn about. We learned about in primary school, which I'd say, I don't know how it works that side, but in primary school, basically before you go to high school. So we learned about what they're learning in high school in primary.
Okay, very quickly. I'm not trying to brag. So me and Afolabi and Kunle Williams are very smart. When Afolabi, when we were in primary school, we had to read 4 Legs Good, 1 Leg Bad, Animal Farm. We had to learn about, I was 5 years old, and they told me that the US bombed Japan in World War II. They talked about even the guys you mentioned. What I'm saying is that primary school education is very important. And wouldn't you say so, Afolabi? Because it's no coincidence. Really. Yeah, it's no coincidence that you, me, Biodun, and Kunle have started a global, we talk about soccer, we talk about Formula 1, because we had a thorough education. He mentioned Hitler, Mansa Musa, all these different people, and he's learning it in primary school, which means that, Salim, the reason you're on our show now is because you're very smart, but you've pointed out that you had very good educational background. Continue, Salim, and we'll end up,
So,
meanwhile, Larato has been here all along anyway.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk to Larato too for a second. Yeah, okay. So let's move on. How much time do we have, Afolabi?
Say 5 minutes.
5. Okay, so quickly, Salim, last thoughts. Yeah.
So having said that, what I'm just trying to put out there is that the educational system in South Africa feels like it's not fair.
Yeah, so this goes back to me to socialism. The resources of the country need to be spent on education. Let me tell you the best country, and we're going to go to and I'm going to end with you there, Salim. We're going to go to Lerato. Cuba is a rural country, but they have a higher literacy rate than the U.S. They produce vaccines for cancer and for COVID, and their people are very well educated, but they haven't lost their rural and heartland consciousness. What are your thoughts on that, Lorato? Sorry for cutting in front of you, Sonny, but you added so many great things. And we're going to be back later to talk about Germany, the Führer. Okay, continue. I hope that's not beer you're drinking, Salim. Don't joke. I have beer, so I'm a hypocrite. So last thoughts on that. We're going to end with Lorato. What we talked about. Yeah, I think Cuba is the right model. Cuba is the right model. Continue. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Cuba highlights to us what is possible, and I think some of the countries in the East also show that. I think Japan is very good at connecting roots to future.
Yeah, and actually, those two countries practice Ubuntu internally. They practice Ubuntu internally. Continue. Yeah.
Exactly. I think South Korea is also doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think as controversial as Rwanda might be, Rwanda is on that path.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing. I just think that they have some policies which are wrong. And we all want to say that we're balanced.
As controversial as they may be.
Yeah. I think Kagame needs to leave. They need a new president.
We have to talk about Kagame. We have to talk about Kagame.
Okay, we're gonna do that on the next episode. Let Lorato finish. Trust me, our show could go for 4 hours. You know that. We could do 4 hours. We'll come back and do this next week. Okay, yeah. But let Lorato finish. Okay, yeah.
So I think we all know Cuba struggles because of economic sanctions from the U.S. and things like that.
But you know what they've done? They've innovated and they found ways. Like in Cuba, they use sugarcane to put generators and for fuel because they don't get oil from outside. But also Russia and China are now sending them oil. Thank you, Russia and China. Continue, Lorato.
And I think that there needs to be that balance.
Yeah, there needs to be a balance.
So that people can choose ways in which they want to exist without feeling like they have to be held hostage by either England or Europe or the Americas.
So we've come full circle back to BRICS, which is an important part of South Africa's destiny for now, until African nations create our own bank. And even after we create our own bank, we'll have a G4. I call it G4, IMF, BRICS, OAU, and maybe South America. And we all compete with each other, but we all try to win rather than lose. What do you think, Lorato?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of room for cooperation within what we call the global.
And we have to remember, we're all human beings. We're one species. We're one species. Yeah, continue. Sorry.
And I know. Even the States and Europe, they keep coming here to come.
They keep, and they're part of our world. They're part of our world, but
in Africa, because
they have a lot of knowledge.
But I think it's because they know that they need some of the resources that we have.
Yeah. Can I say something?
And one of the greatest resources that we've been producing recently is the human resource. Because
that's what we have.
We've been producing some of the greatest brains.
Well, I'm not bragging. You're seeing 4 of the greatest brains right here, right now. And all of us are from Africa. And what we are saying, nobody in the world, I dare anybody to say, no other group of people in the world are going to the level we're going now because of our tradition from our ancestors, which is why we should never forget that we're not superior to any other group, but we've preserved our knowledge systems. Continue. Sorry, we'll continue on that. Go ahead.
And that's it for me, man. That's it for me.
Yeah, thank you. So, Lorato and hold on, Lorato, Salim, and Afolabi. This is a show we're going to keep on doing, and it's called African Agenda. But when you already have the word Africa, the whole world is encapsulated in it, which is why we stand for peace in Palestine. We want peace in Israel. We want peace in America. We want peace in all the Black neighborhoods in America. We want peace in South Africa, and we're wishing South Africa the best. Personally, I say, if you live in South Africa, vote for your local government. But that brings a bigger question, because DA, I don't even think the Western Cape wants to be part of South Africa anymore. But I'm bringing up another subject. So I'm going to say vote EFF, vote DA, and I don't want, but I don't want to see
but ANC. We want a change.
No, but also we don't want ANC to become so weak. If ANC becomes too weak, then DA can take capitalism off of it, can capitalize quickly. Lerato, what do you think about that? If ANC falls apart totally, do you think the whole country could fall apart? Yeah.
Not really. Hey,
okay.
I think well, they could be some dissent in terms of the followers of the ANC who would be disgruntled because they would not be. They would not
so we're running out of time
to these monetary benefits that they've been showering.
So we're running out of time. So go ahead. So no, continue. Sorry, I sometimes I jump in front. Continue.
Yeah. So there could be trouble with regards to that. But I think I think that the populace of the country is strong enough to hold the country together.
And so no matter what happens,
outside of these,
so no matter what happens, ANC and EFF and MK need to coalesce, so that no matter what the results are, and I think ANC will still get more votes than everybody, but they may not get the majority. Those three groups need to coalesce, because South Africa, even though South Africa is for everybody, the majority of its people are Blacks who have been displaced and underrepresented, and they need reparations. But they're also willing to live peaceably with the settlers, because the settlers are going nowhere. So we're going to leave here. Sorry to cut you, but Lerato, thank you very much. Salim, thank you. And we got to say 6 thank yous to Afolabi, because I'm the poet, but Afolabi is the engineer, and we wouldn't have our shows without Afolabi. So I want to say thank you to you guys. I want to say from my heart, I love you guys very much, and I'm very passionate about what we're doing. We'll see you guys again next weekend. Thank you. Okay.
No problem. Thank you very much.